Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. First half of the show, we had head coach Todd Bowles. Now I am very excited to be joined by wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. B-Mac, thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Good to be here.
You're my repeat guest here. You did such a good time the first time around, and I felt like there was so much I wanted to talk to you about, especially because at that time, you know, your wide receiver room and who was playing.
That's right.
A lot happened with y'all this year, so I figured
we'd a lot different.
Repeat a little bit here to hear how it went for the rest of the season. But first, before we get into that, just kind of overall takeaways now from the game that had a couple days to digest, and unfortunately the result ended up not even being about the game. But
right.
Just kind of what you guys took away from that.
Yeah, I think you know, overall there's always, you know, the game, the season has the ebbs and flows of it, and that's really why you try to get the guys bought into just playing to a standard, not so much the opponent, not so much what the overall outcome is. Hey, man, if you play to a certain standard, then I think that's kind of where you get the consistency at. And so I do feel like the guys tried to do a really good job of that, just like they have all year. And like I said, you know, when it comes to the outcomes kind of are the outcomes. I'm always a big proponent of, man, the outcome is a culmination of all the stuff that you do leading up until that point. So just making sure that we have all those checkpoints during the week, and, you know, we're hitting those and hitting those the right way. And like I said, I think those Sundays and Mondays sometimes, man, you know, take care of itself. And I think this game was no different.
And what was your message to your guys? I know you guys do exit interviews and get a chance to talk to everybody. What was your message to your room about the season overall and the way they handled it and what you want them taking into the offseason?
Yeah, I think, you know, very, very similar. I think that at the end of the day, you have to do everything that you can do to be the best professional in this profession. You know, at the end of the day, you're still a professional. Even though it's the off season, you still have professional stuff right now that you got to do, and making sure that everybody has a real solid plan for their time off, you know, quote unquote off, right? And so, you know, how much time you're going to give yourself to rest, how much time you're going to start training, and exactly what that's going to be, exactly where that's going to be, travel when it comes to and fro. I mean, just everything, just having a solid plan for it. And so that was really the main goals of the exit interviews. Just you kind of debrief the year. You kind of, you know, give your perspective of it. They give their perspective of it, and, you know, you try to make sure that they understand, hey, man, this is kind of where we ended up at, and, you know, what's the solid plan to make sure that we're improving in every area that we can. And I mean, you know, us coaches included.
And I know your room went through a lot this year. It's very true. So what are you most proud of your guys for this year?
The thing I'm most proud of is, you know, regardless of who was in there, the standard of play didn't change, you know, and so it can't be, all right, well, you know, this guy's in there, so we expect less of this position just because he's not in there. And, you know, I agree I disagree, very strongly right now to that notion. You know, I think, you know, you have a job and an obligation to do once you're there, and you have to do everything in your power to meet the requirements right now of that job and obligation, regardless of who's in there, how you feeling at the time, if you're a little nicked up or not. And so just, you know, knowing and understanding that overall way of thinking, I mean, that's how you get consistent high play and consistent high, you know, results in anything that you're doing, to be honest with you. And so I'm really, really proud of those guys being able to adopt that way of thinking, and knowing that that they're a big piece of it. You know, regardless of what your piece is, you're a big piece of the success and how to get this thing going. You know, because we're all just kind of pieces, and it all has to match up right, and we're all a part of everything that goes on out there. So just knowing and understanding that we need to uphold our end of the bargain when it comes to that, and push forward regardless of who's in there or what's right and what's not right.
We're talking to wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. So looking at this last game, I know that the weather ended up, I'm sure, being a big factor in the game plan and what you guys were able to dial up and not. So taking that into consideration, how did you feel about the performance of your guys, whether it be, I know there weren't a ton of targets to go around, but then also blocking in the run game, the whole picture. What did you think of your guys' performance?
I thought they did well. And like I said, I mean, understanding that, I mean, we put a lot on those guys, even when they're not even when it's not in the pass game, we put a lot of responsibility on those guys. So in the run blocking, whether that's blocking at the line of scrimmage or blocking the DB. The standard of execution doesn't change, and so I think those guys, took it upon themselves to do whatever they can do to make sure that we're successful as a team. And so that's been, like I said, the approach of the guys all year, and I thought they did a good job of trying their best to uphold that part of it.
And tell me about the effect of the rain and how you guys try to approach it, mitigate the factors.
Yeah.
We do live in Florida, so it's not like y'all are strangers, but it's still annoying when it happens.
Absolutely. Obviously speaking, it's hard to throw and catch when it's pouring down rain outside. Just very, very general, just very, a general statement when it comes to that. That is very, very true. So it does alter what you want to do because you don't want to put the ball at risk, So anytime that ball is thrown and it's a bunch of rain outside, or it's really, really wet and really hard to hold on to, then there's just a multitude of bad things that can happen that really, really heightens because of the rain. So you want to make sure the passes that you do throw are safer, to a certain degree, but and also just having another option to be able to, all right, if it's not there, can he run it? Given different check down opportunities and everything else when it comes to that. So schematically, you have to change that part of it up too. And but the other thing is too, not just that, but just actually running a route when it's sloppy out there isn't the funnest thing to do in the world too. But we got to deal with it. It's like I tell the guys, man, it's an occupational hazard. So you got to go out there and but the one thing that I do think it does give us a bit of an advantage a little bit in route running because you kind of know where you're going and the DB doesn't. So you can kind of anticipate.
At least we hope.
that would be what you would hope. Yeah. And but so it gets a little bit. You get a little bit of an advantage when it comes to that, but it's still not. It's not the easiest thing to do, throw and catch right now. So you do have to rely a little bit on the run game and shorter passes and and different things schematically that you got to do because of the weather, because you don't want to turn it over.
No, and I saw it was interesting, the gloves, no gloves. Yeah. Tell me the decisions through that and how you're involved with that and the guys and their thoughts and even just the mental side of it.
Yeah, it's a lot of it's mental. And so out there the day before, I'm out there with the returners. I get a little water bottle. I'm dousing their arms and their gloves down and everything else, just to make sure that you have a solid plan for it. Yeah. Because it is personal preference, but there are certain gloves or certain types of gloves that the water doesn't affect as much. So there's some glove purists that's like, hey, man, I'm wearing gloves no matter what. And you kind of encourage those guys to go that route. And there's some guys that's like, hey, because there are some gloves that are flat out bad. Yeah. When the water hits them, and it's just like it's like it's not very easy to hold on to a wet pigskin when it comes to that. So those are guys that don't like the wet weather gloves, and then they wear the other gloves, and it's like, all right, man, I just kind of go without it. And it kind of gets a little tack to it. The ball does when it gets a little bit wet, but it's still, just whatever you can do to make sure that you're holding on to it,
That makes sense. I know that, Chris didn't get a catch until very late in the game. How much of that was this whole rain game plan thing, and how much was, I know he also got added to the injury report a bit, and just how did that affect what you guys were trying to do?
That whole 48 hours with CG before the game was a little more dramatic than you would like it being. But, so I'll say this. You knew he was going to play. You knew he was going to go out there and doubt, and give everything he had at it. A lot of it more so probably was the weather and the game plan and everything else having to change because of it. But, we were a little bit more careful with hey, man, getting them in, getting them out, what we're asking them to do and everything else, and probably the overall number of plays that he played, did go down a little bit because of it. But, he's a warrior, and you knew nothing was going to keep him out. It was just going to be, all right, let's make sure we're really smart with him.
All right, we're going to take a quick break here on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. We're talking to wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. We're talking to wide receivers coach Bryan McClendon. So let's talk a little bit about Mike coming back, because what a triumphant return. And the emotions of it, and then watching him play at such a high level. What was it like for you to see, and did you know he'd be able to come back and have that kind of a game just right out the gate after missing time?
Well, I would like to say yeah. And the reason being, you just have you've seen Mike play at such a high level, and you know what he's capable of. And you just know, hey man, if this guy's healthy and he's in good enough shape, he's a hard guy to go out there and guard. He really is. And so just him giving you that whole dynamic of being able to be explosive and what you could do in the pass game with him, you kind of knew that was there. But just his overall attitude to come out and just do whatever he could, whether that's blocking himself or whether that's, hey, just throw it up to me, just having that attitude of not caring who's guarding him or who's around him, to come out there and try to come down with those contested catches and everything else that he's been so good at. So, like I said, I would like to say yeah, just because you have that expectation of him. But nothing surprises you when it comes to him, just because he's wired the right way, and he's the person he is, and he worked his tail off to get back. He really, really did, man. I mean, every step of the way, he was like, hey, I'm coming back here, and then actually came back a little bit ahead of schedule, and was kind of pushing, hey, I need to, pushing them to get the doctor visits and everything else moved up so he can go ahead and then get cleared early. I mean, he was really, really motivated to come out there and help us try to make this playoff run.
Were you a little heartbroken for him about the 1,000-yard streak coming to an end?
I think a lot of people, me included, were way more upset about that than he was.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you the type of person he is. But a lot of people, out here love him and care about him, man. And we know that that's just such a huge feat. Mm-hmm. And a guy that's played as long as he has and had the success as long as he has, you want all of that stuff for those guys. But he is completely content with it, and like immediately, and I'm like, hey man,
we're sad.
Absolutely, like, hey man, you don't feel like I do, but no, I mean, so I think I was a little more upset about it than he was, unless he goes home and cries about it and doesn't tell me.
Yeah, he's just somewhere that we don't know.
No doubt, but no, man, he has been, completely, hey, that's behind me. Whatever I got to do to help us win, let's just go out there and win.
And then I know that also for him, at this point, like, we don't know for sure how long he's going to play, even though he looks like he could play till he's 50 at this point. Yeah. I imagine your exit interview is somewhere along the lines of you just begging him to continue playing football here.
Actually it's not. I kind of keep a lot of it between he and I. But I will say this: it's really just a overall understanding of, hey man, where you at mentally with this thing? Yeah. And so. And then, he'll kind of share it, and we'll kind of have some dialogue a little bit about that. But, he's not one to rush into any type of decision. Mm-hmm. And so I think he's going to go about the process the right way and get the information that he needs to get if there is any, and try to make a sound decision that way. And so I'm be in here, going through that, and we're going through that until he lets everybody knows. But no, I mean I think he's at a good place with it, and we'll see.
We'll see. Whenever it's a guy like he and Chris, where they obviously have a lot of chemistry with Baker, but then they miss some time due to injury, is there a need to rebuild any of that chemistry? Is there anything like that? How much time would it take off before that loses it, or is it just riding a bike, we're back in it?
No, I think there's certain forms of that it is like riding a bike. Mm-hmm. Kind of some of the nonverbal stuff that those guys are able to kind of get done between themselves, and but there's definitely a component that has to be worked on a lot. When it comes to timing, when it comes to ball placement, him seeing where the DB is to opposed to, where he's trying to get, and Baker knowing where to put that ball, and that just comes with time and repetition, and it all changes. It changes every year. Your body changes every year. You get, obviously nobody gets younger, so those routes and you getting in and out of breaks change a little bit, and so I think there is a actual time on task when it comes to the time and things and everything else of that part of it.
And a great example to me was Chris told me on one of my other shows about his touchdown in Miami and the way he learned from a previous game about, oh, now I'm the first in the progressions compared to the third. And I just found that so interesting, and it really showed me like a whole mental side of it as well, of what are the things that are so impressive to you about specifically Chris from the mental side of the game for the way that he really took a lesson and learned it and then thought about it in real time.
Yeah, I mean, CG and a lot of the other guys too, but CG has a uncanny ability to be able to take what he knows and apply it right away. Some guys, they need reps at it. Some guys actively got to go out there and screw it up, quite frankly, before they get it right. And some people got to walk through it. But, he's one of those guys you can tell him and he can digest it and then go out there and do it. And so a lot of that is because he's so intelligent, obviously. And then the other part of it, man, he's able to put himself there mentally, like it's physical, if that makes any sense. And so, I mean, he could see exactly what you're saying. He knows it, and he can kind of put his body through it right now mentally to be able to go out there and get it done. So, I mean, but like I said, a lot of that is just his time on task and doing what he knows that he can do over there as well. But and him being just an overall student of the game, him understanding football, understanding the defenses, understanding what they're trying to do to stop you, and knowing where he needs to be and knowing the little small parts right now that football-wise too, I think is huge.
He is known for being incredible at blocking, and I would love to hear why he is so good at it.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't mind being physical. It's really simple. In order to block somebody, you got to want to block somebody. And so if you don't mind that physicality part of it, then you'll be just fine. And he definitely does not mind, getting physical and getting, doing the dirty work when it comes to route running or blocking and playing around the line of scrimmage and everything else. And that's kind of what gives him his edge. Is that he's a guy that doesn't mind having to put his hands on somebody or move somebody out the way or taking somebody and moving them against their will. And that's because that's ultimately what you're doing. And so, when he has that and then he has the physical build to be able to do it, then he has the proper technique to get that done. And obviously, man, he's had that gives you a chance to be successful at, and he surely has.
We're talking to wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. So looking at a mecca and the way that he was able to step in for those guys, and of course here we all thought we weren't drafting a wide receiver early because we have all these, and then did that turn out to be a useful draft pick?
Without a doubt.
Tell me, especially early in the season, what helped him flourish so much and what we learned from that.
Sure. I think very, very early it helped him a lot to be able to go out there with Mike and those guys and be out there with them. But the thing that make, and I've said this plenty of times before, the thing that make Mech special is just his makeup. He has all the physical tools to be successful, but just how he's made up mentally. He wants to go out there, very similar to Chris. He applies coaching right away. He doesn't have to screw it up in order to get it right. And he is very, very intelligent as well. So, he is a guy that he understands defenses, understands what we're trying to do to attack them, and he understands exactly, all right, man, where do I need to be and what do I need to do in order to get this done. And so, like I said, his makeup is really what attributed to that. It really did. And obviously he has all the physical tools over there as well. So we were able to move him around and everything else. And then Mike garnered a lot of the attention over there early absolutely, man, where I was able to open some things up right now for him early. And he took full advantage of that.
And so now what are the things that going into this offseason when you have time to work with him, OTAs and things like that, what are the things that you feel like you're going to be working on with him to take him to that next level that regardless of whoever's out there with him, we know he has the capability of being that wide receiver one guy. What are some of those little things that could take him to that next level?
Yeah, I think just overall, I think he's going to benefit just from a full offseason, just even from a rest standpoint too. Because you think about, I was talking about this with him earlier. He goes from playing in the national championship, then goes straight from the national championship into training, goes straight from training into the draft. Mm-hmm. Draft comes, and he's here. So he has really been nonstop since training camp of his last year over at Ohio State. And so that's a lot. You know, that's a lot on anybody. And anybody who goes the way he goes, I mean, you can't help but get more down. So I think he's just going to benefit of a full offseason first, and, you know, letting his body recruit, letting his body recover, and then now being able to ramp up at the right time over there as well, I think it's going to be good. But just technically, I mean, there's always route running and things like that, detail-wise, man, that I think everybody can always improve on, including Mike and, you know, all the guys, you know, all the greats. But, you know, just overall, I think he's just going to benefit from having that full NFL offseason to be able to go into his second year.
And then I know also now looking at this where, I mean, basically Jalen's injury in rehab was crazy. I mean, that now that we've learned even more about how scary his actual injury was, what was that like for you as a coach to watch him walk through that, deal with that, and what were the ways you tried to help him on the mental side too?
Yeah, I mean, you know, that's scary for anybody, you know, and so just really just always trying to make sure, man, hey, man, it's a clear reminder to always count your blessings, you know, not take anything for granted. And, you know, sometimes, unfortunately, not saying that this is what happened with J-Mac, but, you know, sometimes, you know, it's, you know, you got to get put through stuff to make sure that you understand how fortunate you really are. And so I think he immediately saw that. You know, he immediately saw that. So it went from, hey, man, you know, let's not worry about this football stuff. Let's just make sure that this part is right. And just like any injury, man, I think one of the toughest things to do is make sure that your mind doesn't get you, you know. And, you know, there's some good and bad days with anybody would have with that. And I think he's definitely had more good days and when it comes to that. And, I mean, he's done a great job of trying to keep his mind busy and all that. I mean, he reads all the time now, so he kind of discovered reading and things like that I think really helped him. But you know, like I said, man, you know, there were up and down times right now in that part of it too. And only thing you can do right there is just try to be there to help him through those. And but shoot, man, you know, him getting back, you know, was just, you know, really, really exciting over there for him. And just not just, you know, those checkpoints where, hey, man, you know, you're healing, you know. And so, I mean, there was constantly light at the end of the tunnel for him too. That I think helped out a lot too. But yeah, I mean, it's anytime somebody goes through something that's scary, it immediately puts stuff in perspective for me. You know, it's like, hey, man, you know, this football stuff is going to end one day. You know, it's just, let's make sure all the other pieces are right and making sure that you're helping them with that part of it too.
All right, we're going to take one more break here on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. We're talking to wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. This is Buccaneers Radio. Welcome back into Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. Time for our final segment here with wide receivers coach Bryan McClendon. So we talked about Jalen just kind of going through that injury and the rehab process. To me, even more shocking than like the way Mike or Chris was able to come back, I could not believe that after an injury like that, Jalen came out shot out of a cannon and didn't look like, I mean, he looked like maybe he'd like had a hangnail that was all had plagued him. I couldn't believe it. So tell me, what do you think enabled him to do that, and just what was it like to watch him accomplish that? Yeah,
I think, you know, just overall just having a genuine appreciation for being able to do it again. You know, you get that close to not just football, a lot of stuff getting taken away from you, right? And so now you kind of getting this where you're healing and you feeling you getting able to get back to it, and it's just like anything else. It's like, oh man, when I get this taken away, when I get this back, you know, I just have I have a brand new appreciation for it. And I think just his ability to be able to go out there and then have that, I think has really, really fueled him to not take anything for granted, being able to give everything right now to the gifts and abilities that God has given him, and I think he wants to take and run with that.
And then, so now looking at this next year for him, hoping that, you know, getting to come in healthy and have a whole full season. What could full season Jalen look like for year 3 after, you know, what he's gone through this year, how he's looked these last few games, and just what you think he could look like?
Yeah, I think the sky's the limit for him as well. I think, you know, before he got injured during training camp, I mean, it was, to be honest with you, it was tough to tell who was kind of, you know, I mean, he was up there with the rest of them.
You had like 4 wide receiver ones.
He was up there with the rest of them, and I mean, and not missing a beat. And so I mean, he had just progressed so much, and so I you know, going into this next offseason, is, you know, like I talked to him about, man, it's going to be that times 10 of everything else that you did to be able to get your mind and body ready for that, you know. And so I think he has a really good plan for that as well, because he kind of lived through this offseason thing, and then he kind of found what works, and so. And I think he has a really good perspective on that, and so I mean he's going to go and work that plan, and I think, you know, he found a good plan for him that has allowed him to be able to go out there and be able to perform at his best.
And of course, Bucs fans all season were just imagining this wide receiver room, everybody healthy,
Yeah.
and especially with a healthy offensive line,
That's
healthy
right.
all the things. What are your thoughts of what next year could like if I'm just going to assume that all four of them are going to be here, because
Yeah.
my heart can't handle not thinking
There
about
you
that
go.
yet. So
There you go.
we're going to
There you
assume
go.
that. What would all four of them healthy look like now, especially having a year for y'all to
Right.
learn what they all do
Sure.
well with each other?
I think it have a chance to be really fun. It have a chance to be really, really fun. And not just, you know, for Bucs fan, but even for those guys. Those guys love going out there. They love playing with one another. They like going out there and competing with one another in a good way. Hey, you know, hey man, this guy made a play. Hey, now it's my turn to do this. And you know, those guys, and they're great for each other. They're great for each other on the sideline. They're great for each other at practice, in the meeting room, walkthroughs. So I think it's like I said, man, it'll be a lot of fun, and it's a lot of fun to coach those guys. It's a lot of fun to coach those guys. I got a great room. So I think, you know, it'll be a lot of fun and for a lot of different people in that regard.
You want to talk about fun? Tez Johnson has become just one of my favorite people.
Yeah,
he is a walking comic. Tell me what dynamic he's added, both in the meeting rooms
right.
and on the field.
Yeah, Tez, man, he brings a lot of energy. He brings a lot of energy. That obviously, man, the youthfulness in there does. But I mean, Tez loves this game of football. He loves competing. You know, there's not a stage that's too big for him. And so, I mean, he's always eager to learn, always eager to get better. And as long as that's the case with him, which I truly believe it is, he's going to have a very long, successful career. And so, I mean, it's going to be good for him to have a complete offseason over there as well, having a solid plan to be able to work his plan to be able to be at his best too. But, you know, I think he has a chance to do a lot of good stuff, and you know, only time will tell. But he just needs to stay with it.
And what are the things that you feel like where does he fit if all those guys are back and playing at a high level? What are some of the skill sets he brings
Sure.
that would be a unique way to use him here, and knowing that, like,
Absolutely.
the ball can only go around so many times,
right.
so many mouths to feed,
That's
all
right.
of that? What are kind of his strengths of where you're like, oh, but man, we need a Tez for this?
Sure. Well, you know, Tez, he gives you that natural explosiveness. You know, he's a guy that's good in space, good with the ball in his hand, good at creating those explosive plays. So, I mean, I think there's always room for guys like that. You know, if we can get him in space, we can do different stuff right now to be able to utilize his explosiveness. I think that helps out a lot, and it gives you another ingredient in kind of the mixture of those guys to go out there and being able to be a good offense. So, you know, like I said, I think that there's a number of things that he does well. There's a number of things that not just he, but all those guys can improve at, and just got to make sure, man, that we're working in all those areas to work on all that stuff. And
then I know also now, thinking about the ways that Shep contributed this year, just how important did he end up being to the room and what you guys needed?
It's been invaluable, you know, and I mention this, you know, all the time when somebody brings him up to me. I mean, Shep just, for a guy who's been through all that he's been through in the business part of it, and obviously in the sports part of it, just gives you a great perspective for those guys, for him to say, hey man, look, I've tried this. You guys need to do this, or I've done this, and you guys need to stay away from that part of it too. And been great for the room, man. But nobody cheers harder for all those guys than Shep does. And so been completely selfless, and understands right now, man, how important he is to those guys both on and off the field, and he's completely bought into that. So I mean, he's been invaluable to those guys as well.
We're talking to wide receiver coach Bryan McClendon. So tell me, for you, how this year challenged you as a coach, made you better as a coach, and just kind of what some of your strengths are in the way that you approach your job and what you do.
Sure. You know, it challenges anytime there's a lot of movement. There's a lot of this guy's in, this guy's out. Obviously, man, that puts you to the test. You know, that puts you to the test. And so, you know, one of the things that I always wanted to stress to the guys was, you know what I mean, regardless of, very similar like I was saying a little bit earlier, the standard, my standard for you guys playing, my expectations right now, that's not going to change regardless of who is in there. And making sure that we're upholding that standard in the room is something that was really important to me. It was really important to me. And so regardless of who is in there and everything else, is the job getting done or is it not? You know, and it's, you know, it's, tell people, man, it's simple, but it's not easy, right? You know, to go out there, man, and be able to kind of put a lot of stuff to the side and go out there and get it done. And, but, you know, the expectations for everybody to do that, me included. And so, but being able to hold myself and everybody in that room to a high standard of making sure, man, that we're working, you know what I mean, and working to accomplish that stuff at a high level, man. That was probably the thing that was really important to me. I won't say did a good job at it or not, but that was really important to me. And so, and the other part of it was making sure that everybody understood that, hey, man, that you gotta master your role, right? Everybody's not going to get the same stuff. Everybody's not going to get the same routes that Mike gets or CG gets or J-Mac or Mac or whoever it is, Tez. You know, everybody's role is going to be a little bit different, but that doesn't mean it's less important. You know, one is more important than the next, you know. So mastering that role that you got. And I mean, that's it, mastering that role. I don't coach the O-line, I don't coach QBs, I coach the receiver. That's the role I want to master. And so anything else outside of that, I mean, it's really out of my control and it's out of your control. And you know, so but we can master the role we got, and are we putting into that? And the second we start looking at something else, then we're going backwards in our role. You know, and so I mean those are the things that we harped on a lot in the room, and that was what we were trying to do.
Well, Coach, thank you so much for joining us today, earlier this season. We just really appreciate it, and we hope you have a good start to your offseason.
I appreciate it.
All right, that's going to do it for us on Buccaneers Total Access, brought to you by Advent Health. This is Buccaneers Radio.